There are moments when someone is physically present but emotionally absent. And there are moments when someone is mentally present but physically absent. And that causes what is called an ambiguous loss. And today we are discussing that kind of a loss. And to help us through the show, we have our sister Nkosi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. So people would love to know who Nkosi is. Maybe you can just introduce yourself. I just said Nkosi, but maybe in depth so that they know who we are talking to.
Okay. My name is Nkosinomusa Matshisela. I'm 27 years old. I come from a family of six kids, 3 girls, 3 boys. I'm now a mother of 1.
Okay.
And I recently completed my master's in climate change and sustainable development. And that's just about it.
That's just about it. 3 boys, 3 girls.
Yes.
You can talk about the family as it is, like from the first one. I don't know which position which you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk about that.
The first one is Freedom, then the second is Prince Leah, and then the third born is my sister, Nkosinomusa Leah. Then the 4th and 5th, it's me and my twin. Yes, then the last born, it's my young brother, Nkosinomusa Leah. Yeah.
Would you want to talk about being a twin?
Well, it's interesting now that we're older because we understand each other on a deeper level. But when we were kids, it was not interesting at all. The fights, would fight a lot. She's much clever than me, and she's faster than me in almost everything. So it was a little bit of a Tom and Jerry situation. But well, as we've grown older, it's a blessing, if I might say, because she knows how I relate to different stuff on a deeper level. My husband always complains that I want to be so close to you more than your twin. But I always said we've known each other from but well, yeah, the relationship is quite deep. It's a blessing.
Okay,
a blessing.
That's very interesting. And now when fights were picked, who would come to the rescue among the siblings?
Well, mostly it was Freedom or Prince, but my dad always used to say, just let them be, because at one time we fought and then my twin Tando was wrong. Then my dad gave her a bit of a touching. And while he was beating her, I knocked on the door angry. You shouldn't beat her. So after that, my dad says, as I'm twins, as in I just let them solve them. Even till today, even when we go home, we pick a fight here and there, he just sits there silently, doesn't get involved, So he says, let them be, they'll solve it on their own.
And then you spoke about Freedom being the one who really came into the picture. Maybe let's talk about him as your big brother.
Yes, he's always been there as someone to offer guidance, because even when we were fighting, like, why are you fighting her? Why are you fighting her? What's your standpoint? What's your argument? Tell me your argument. Let me hear your argument as well, so that we come to an impasse. We get to an agreement. You don't always have to fight to solve issues. Just try and calmly solve them. So he was always there, because at one point we lived with them as the guardian when my parents were in Vic Falls working there. So he's always been there offering guidance, trying to minimize the fights, and sometimes there to ignite them in a fine way, Skalana, the nickname here, the nickname there, but it has always been fun. It has always been fun.
Yeah. It sounds to me he played a counselor, parental role, and what did that mean to you?
It meant a lot, because as we were growing up, you know that there's a point where you can't really connect with your parents as you're growing up, when you're a teenager, if I might say. So Free being there, he connects with us on a childhood level, and connects with us on a more guiding level, if I might say. So it was, he's there to offer guidance and counsel.
Thank you very much for talking about that. We'll take a short break, and then after the break, we'll continue with the story. Please stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. This is Painful Goodbyes, and I'm with Nkosi, and we've been talking about freedom and how he's been playing. He played both a counselor, parental role in the family. Mm-hmm. And as you shared that, I felt the deep connection that you had, and you actually expressed that. Mm-hmm. Maybe we can go further just to talk about the sweet moments that you spent together with freedom.
Okay. For me, there's a moment where I admired preaching, where I wanted to be a preacher. And him being a very good preacher, he was there to guide me. And I remember at my local church, at one point, I was the SOP director, and there was the SOP week. So I was supposed to do the week of prayer. So he was guiding me on how to lay down the groundwork, how to get to the climax and wrap up. So he was always there, offering guidance on how to become a good preacher. And he would always say, you talk very, very fast. You're very, very fast. Try and calm down, So every time, even now, I always remember that voice. Mm-hmm. When you're talking to someone, try and calm down. Mm-hmm. Don't talk very fast, because sometimes the message is lost when you're talking very fast. So he was always there, offering that kind of guidance and even helping me buy books. I remember I bought the book Great Controversy from him. He really forced me to buy it from him because he said, you really have to know this. You have to read that book. I remember even Christ Object Lessons, Letters to Young Lovers, Messages to Young People. You'll be there. You need to read this book. You need to listen to this sermon. And I knew that if he said I should do this, I definitely should do this. If he said I should read that book, I should definitely read that book. If he said listen to that sermon, I'd carefully listen to it, because there are points where he wants me to learn and apply those lessons in my life, both as an individual and a somewhat aspiring preacher. Yes.
All right. So I don't know whether it was a morning or it was an evening. I saw the fly about his disappearing, and I don't know how the news got to you.
I remember it was just 2 weeks after my wedding, trying to settle into the new place, unpacking. Unfortunately, that week, my husband went back to work at Lubani, so I was alone. So when my twin called me, says, Free is missing, I was like, what do you mean? Because this can't happen again. If you remember well, my grandmother also disappeared. I think it was 2018. So I was like, no, this can't happen. So naturally, I picked up the phone. I called him. Nothing. And then I just prepared myself, went home to Culture Park. Like, what is happening? How can he be disappearing? Where could he be? So those questions, they just come back. Well, we are trying to deal with the fact that my grandmother also disappeared that way. With Free, it can't happen. He's young. He's well thought. He's okay. So how does that happen? So it was really difficult, and people are now calling, sending messages, what's happening? And at that moment, you're trying to figure out what's happening yourself, because you don't understand. Yes. So it was really difficult. I called my husband. He was saying, no, it can't be. It can't happen. That can't be. Maybe there's an explanation to it. So in this type of situations, you just give it a day. No, after a day, probably it will be okay. But then you wait a day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks. Before you know it, it's now 3 years. So it was really difficult.
Now, I'm thinking about what you've just mentioned, that your grandma disappeared and then freedom disappears. And this is the second
time, yes.
What's the connection between the two in terms of, let's look at the connection between the two in terms of how you felt when this thing happened?
Well, it really hits, because with my grandmother, it was very difficult, because you know that she's vulnerable, she's now old. Where could she be? What happened? It was very, very difficult. And for Free, you'd like to think that, no, but he's a grown-up. He's not yet that old. He probably will figure his way out back home or something like that. So it was really difficult, because in those instances you try and think, are we all going to disappear as a family? Who's next? What's happening? Is it a spirit or something? What is happening? It was difficult to navigate to why does that keep happening again? Yeah.
So the question of who is next must be a very disturbing question. And the other question is why? You have so many questions that came, and how did you process these questions? Now, people are calling, and you have these questions, and you are supposed to be responding, and and there's a lot about it on social media. How did you then manage to process this as these things were coming?
Honestly, it's a one day at a time thing. You let God handle it, because I've learned that even if you have questions that sometimes are difficult, even if you ask yourself, God, why would you let this happen to us again? The solace is He's still God, He still cares. So that helps deal with the pain, because the pain is too much. Because right now I'm struggling to refer to Him as a is or as a was. I can't refer to Him as an is, because He's not there. I can't see Him. You can't refer to Him as a was, because you didn't bury them. You don't know. So it's really difficult for both the disappearance of my grandmother and Free. It's really difficult. You ask yourself, at the same time, the Bible tells us about these forces of darkness and all. But then you ask, how can I protect myself? I have to stay prayed up, It's really difficult. And also the aspect of people. It's as if it's a family thing. It's a thing that we do. And people, they always say that's where you learn that people have different umuntu 2 minutes and then you are confused and the devil starts planting ideas in your head. Maybe if you do go there, maybe you might get answers. But at the same time, your faith says no. You know that this is not okay. And at the same time, you want answers. You want not to compare two similarly difficult positions, but because we are Dela. They know that the grave is there. Umuntu gulile, umuntu ngene accident whatsoever. But with this situation, it just snaps up out of nowhere. You wake up in the morning, it's just a normal day, but something like that just happens, just like that. You're never prepared for it, and the pain it's a lot. It's a lot.
Right. So there are 3 events here. There's the loss of your grandma. There's the loss of your brother, and just when you are about to enjoy your marriage, then this strikes. How did you manage to then adjust into married life with this loss of a male figure that was very important to you?
Yeah, it was really tough, because I was still in the celebratory mood, people, congratulations, everywhere. But all of a sudden, there's a shift. out of nowhere, there's a shift. And it was difficult because at that point I had to go home to try and be with family, to try and navigate the solution from there. So my husband was at work, then he came, I think he came the following day, but I couldn't go home. So he came to see me at home, try and offer words of comfort here and that I know. He'll be found, it's okay. So sometimes I always feel that even to this day in my marriage, the cloud, it's always hanging. I knew he's always there for comfort, even navigating arguments and all that, because people fight and all that. But then you wake up to a sad reality that no, what you thought was always going to be there is no longer there. Because for me, I was very close with Free, very, very close. He's always been a firm brother, but I was close to him. Even when I went to university, he was the first person to offer guidance and counsel on how things work in university. So he was there to encourage me to say, no, stay true to who you are, helped me grow, just join the SDI association groups. He'd always check in here and there, even on assignments and whatnot. So you know that the person was always there. He's always been there. Now, what happens now? What happens now? Because I think for me, we connected really on a really deep level with him, because he's always been there. He's always been there. And he was always there. He always referred to me as Mbuzi. Mbuzi, do this. Mbuzi, do that. We try and, So it was difficult knowing that probably with Ugogo, it just ended just like that. Probably with him, it's going to be the same thing. And it was difficult even trying right now to be fully happy. Even if there's an accomplishment that I have, maybe now free. I remember when I got my license, I told my husband that if Free was there, but then
it's not there.
He's not there. What do you do with those emotions that you wanted to express to him? It's always difficult. And even daily, I would say sometimes even when I'm listening to a sermon or listening to a particular song, my husband always knows that Free loved this song, Free loved the sermon, this particular pastor, Free loved. Because I'm always talking about it. When something comes to my mind about him, I tell him, he loved this, he usually say this and that. So it's been really difficult trying to navigate life, without someone who was always there. Yeah.
And there's that day, when the next day that you tried to pick the phone and called. I think the other day, I don't know how many times you did that kind of a thing. What was going on in your mind as you were trying to call and the phone it wasn't reachable?
It wasn't reachable. Until today, just I think about 2 weeks back, I called again. You'll be hoping for a different response. Probably this time it will ring. And even if a stranger answers and says, no, the owner of the phone is here, also, you'll be just hoping just for that glimmer of hope that it can't end like this. It can't. I hope he's okay. Just something, Sometimes I just go even to his Facebook profile and just search, is he there? So it's always that case of when I call, you hope that there's a response, a positive response.
So Free is mentally present but physically absent.
Yes.
And this creates a kind of a tension that you cannot be able to deal with. No verse can actually solve this. We'll take a short break and we'll continue with the story soon after the break. Welcome back to the show, Painful Goodbyes. You know, the inconclusive nature of an ambiguous loss is the one that is a challenge, because someone is mentally present. In your case, they are mentally present and they are physically absent. And so I'm struggling to understand how you've been coping these past 3 years.
It's been difficult, but it's more like one day at a time thing. Sometimes you can go for a week without even thinking about it, but the day it just comes, it just pounces out of nowhere and just breaks you down. You know, it's a one day at a time thing. Really, there is no way to really get rid of the pain or what, but you just learn to live with it. That we're just thankful for the years that we were with him, and we learned the lessons that we learned, and we apply the lessons even after he's not there. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm thinking you spoke about the trigger, it just pounces, it comes, there should be some triggers, but there's one that comes to my mind, which is your anniversary. It comes close to the time that it disappeared.
Yes.
And how do you deal with these loss reminders, these triggers that come?
Most of those days, I don't even do anything productive. You just spend the whole day crying or listening to the voice notes. You used to send small voice notes in the morning, just power minute or something, just to get you through the day. So just reminiscing on the past, listening to those, or even the voice note where we were just talking about anything really. So that it's a reminder that he was there. Even if he's not there, he was there, and he will forever be there in our hearts. So days like you said, the anniversary or even his birthday, it's difficult, because even if you want to wish him, what are you wishing? It's difficult, because like I said before, is he a is or a was? It's difficult. Yes.
They say time is a healer, and this has been 3 years, and this seems to be disputing that fact, that time is a healer. What's your...
It's true. It's true. We haven't healed at all, even as a family. It's still fresh. It's still fresh in our minds. For my brother, like I said, the second born prince, he lives far away from us. He lives in Botswana. But even when you talk to him, he's like, I'm still traumatized by the disappearance, Kafri. Yes, it hit us, but this one, it just hits a lot, because it's someone you grow up with. It's someone who is there almost every day. Someone he was always big on offering advices. So how do you go on? How do you live apart from that? So it doesn't heal. It doesn't get better. It doesn't, because the closure, it's not there. It's not there.
When we were outside this meeting, you spoke about the fact that you were the last person to see him before his disappearance. And I'm thinking about maybe there were words that you wanted to say, that you wish you could have told him before he disappeared.
Yeah. I remember we're just talking about how things are difficult. We just come out from the wedding, so we're just talking, weddings are heavy. You'd wish you'd have more money and stuff. But then you'd wish that you talked about something more productive, if I might say, because I saw him a day after the wedding. So after that, he disappeared a week or 10 days after. So you just wished maybe we talked, maybe it given me advice or something about what's to come or what not, but daily regret. Had we talked about something better?
What do you think can be the help that can be offered to you as an individual and also as a family in this kind of a situation that can be helpful, that can really bring healing in this kind of a situation?
I think maybe counseling. We never went for counseling, but I think it could help us. But what helps the most is a prayer. Even sometimes friends or even some relatives just say, we're praying for you, uzalunga. That one is on. It encourages you, even if you're not thinking about free that particular day. It just comes as a reassurance that things will be okay. Maybe things will be okay. It helps. It helps.
Now, who was your support system, or who is your support system in this kind of a situation?
Like I said in the morning, earlier, that I talk a lot with my twin, so we really help each other through the pain. Even my husband as well. We just talk about the feelings, the difficult feelings that are there that you wouldn't normally talk to with other people. So even as a family, we sometimes talk about it. My dad, my mom, we talk about it so that we help each other through the pain, because it's difficult for everyone. It's difficult for everyone. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about your dad, who happens to be the pillar, and also your twin. Where does he empty his pain? Because he is the support system of the family. And where does he...
I'd like to thank my mom. I'd like to thank my mom, because my husband showed me this new perspective that I didn't have, that this loss is heavy on your dad, because he lost a mother and he lost a son, just to ambiguous circumstances. So it's, even if for us it's heavy, but it takes a toll mostly on him. So I'd like to think maybe he talks mostly with my mom, because sometimes as a family we just talk here and there, talk about it, that kunzima. But for him it's, I feel for him the most, because this is a hard knock. We definitely don't recover. Yeah.
What would be your parting words from a wounded someone to someone who is wounded that can be helpful in this kind of a situation?
We should cherish the moments that we have with family. You never know whether, even if in my circumstances that they might go missing, something might happen. So we should cherish each other each and every day, not take each other for granted. Say the things that you want to say. Apologize if need be. Thank the person if need be, but never take a moment for granted, because we always say that we might have more time, but we don't. So help each other go through whatever circumstances that you might face in life, because life is difficult, but let's appreciate each other. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing this very difficult story for me, Nkosinomusa, Matshisela, and the crew behind the scenes. It's a wrap.